The 7 Energetic Laws of Reality. Introduction. Long before the first sunrise, before time began counting its steps, there was only awareness, a silent consciousness dreaming itself into being, infinite, luminous, unbroken. From that stillness came a vibration, from vibration came sound, and from sound came form. That first pulse, that living breath, is the same rhythm that beats now within your chest. You are not separate from that origin. You are not wandering through the universe. You are made of it. Every cell of your being hums with the same intelligence that holds the stars in orbit. You were born not to survive within reality, but to shape it, to remember the power that has always moved silently within you. And yet, most have forgotten. We were taught to see ourselves as dust in the wind, victims of fate, servants of circumstance. We forgot that we were the wind itself, the breath of the infinite, exploring its own creation. This forgetfulness is the true fall, not from grace, but from awareness. We drift through our days reacting to appearances, believing in luck and loss, unaware that the world we see is only the echo of what we believe. The mind doubts, the heart fears, and the soul waits. Patient, eternal, whispering reminders through intuition, synchronicity, and desire. You are more than this. But the noise of the outer world drowns the voice of the inner one. We look outward for answers that only the inward gaze can reveal. We chase the reflections in the mirror, never realizing we are the light behind it. And so we suffer, not because life is cruel, but because we've forgotten that life mirrors the quality of our own vibration. The moment you remember who you are, the mirror changes. What if you could remember? What if every experience you've ever had, the joy, the loss, the longing, were the universe's way of guiding you back to your own creative center? What if the power that moves galaxies were quietly waiting within your consciousness, ready to respond to your focus, your emotion, your intention? The truth is not hidden. It is ignored. It has been whispered by mystics, encoded in ancient symbols, sung in every religion's heart. As within, so without. There are laws, not of man, but of mind. Laws that govern energy, creation, and resonance. Laws that operate whether you believe in them or not. Laws that have shaped every moment of your life since before you could speak their names. Once you understand them, you stop living by reaction and begin living by creation. You cease to be the pawn of circumstance and become the architect of destiny. The journey before you is not a study of belief, but of remembrance. There are 7 energetic laws, 7 movements of consciousness, through which reality takes form. They are not commandments to obey, but frequencies to attune to. Each law is a mirror showing you how the universe operates through you. The law of mental creation, which teaches that thought is the blueprint of form. The law of resonance, which reveals that energy answers vibration, not words. The law of pure desire, where longing becomes creative fire. The law of paradoxical intention, where surrender unlocks manifestation. The law of harmonic alignment, where coherence replaces chaos. The law of dynamic flow, where movement sustains life. And the law of reciprocal energy, where all giving becomes receiving. Together, they form a complete circuit, the anatomy of creation itself. To understand them is to remember how to live as a conscious participant in the great unfolding of the universe. This audiobook is not meant to teach you something new. It is meant to help you remember what has never been forgotten, the part of you that already knows, already creates, already exists in harmony with the infinite. As you listen, listen not only with your mind, but with your soul. Let each word become a vibration that awakens something ancient within you, a knowing that feels like coming home. You are not entering these teachings as a student, but as the author of them, rediscovering your own script written long ago in the language of light. For the truth is not learned, it is remembered. And as you remember, the energy of life will begin to rearrange itself around your awakening. Now, take a breath, slow, deliberate, sacred. With that breath, you rejoin the current of creation. With that breath, the infinite becomes aware of itself again, through you. Welcome, traveler of consciousness. You are entering the 7 energetic laws of reality, a return to the knowledge that the universe does not happen to you. It happens through you. Chapter 1. The Law of Mental Creation. Before the first brick of any city was laid, before the first empire rose, before the first human hand reached toward the heavens, there was thought. A silent architect, unseen yet undeniable, whispered form into the void. That whisper became vibration, vibration became pattern, and pattern became the world you now call real. Reality was never built from matter outward, it was dreamt from consciousness inward. The universe is not a mechanical accident, it is a living idea sustained by the infinite mind, and within that infinite mind, your consciousness is a spark, capable of shaping, commanding, and coloring the very substance of existence. Every mountain, every symphony, every revolution began as a thought that refused to vanish. The sculptor, the inventor, the mystic, each one touched the same source, the eternal field of mind that molds itself according to belief. You are not a creature of circumstance. You are a creator of circumstance. You are the thinking center of the universe, and the images you hold within determine the shape life takes without. And yet, most of humanity lives asleep at the wheel of creation. They rise, they complain, they react, never realizing that their thoughts are issuing commands to the universe. They curse their misfortune without seeing they've been rehearsing it every morning in thought, feeling, and expectation. We have been taught to worship the visible and dismiss the invisible, to believe in effects but ignore causes. We labor to move matter by matter, to push the river with our hands, never suspecting that the true lever of reality lies not in effort, but in consciousness. The mind, unguarded, becomes a garden where weeds of fear and doubt grow unchecked. And yet, like all gardens, it obeys whatever is planted. It does not choose between rose and thorn. It only multiplies what you water with emotion and repetition. Your world is not punishing you. It is reflecting you. The images that fill your consciousness are not private. They are blueprints handed to the invisible builders of form. The house you live in, the work you do, the relationships you attract, all rise from the architecture of thought. To change the structure of your life, you must first change the structure of your thinking. Look around you for a moment. Everything that surrounds you, every object, invention, and idea was once invisible. The chair you sit upon existed first as an image in a mind. The phone, the building, the words you are hearing now, all began in imagination before taking form. And if that is true of the outer world, how much more true is it of your personal world? What you notice expands. What you affirm solidifies. What you fear, you feed. If you constantly imagine limitations, your life will obey. If you constantly imagine harmony, harmony will appear. Your thoughts are not weak, fleeting clouds. They are commands written in light. They do not vanish, they vibrate, and the universe, ever obedient, translates vibration into matter, feeling into circumstance, inner pictures into outer experience. So the question is not whether you are creating, but what you are creating. What image have you repeated so often that it has now congealed into reality? What emotion have you carried like an amulet, turning every experience into its mirror? When you realize that every thought is a seed, you begin to choose your thoughts as carefully as a gardener chooses seeds for spring. The law of mental creation declares, "As within, so without." Consciousness is the cause, form is the echo. Every creation begins with the invisible mold cast in the mind. To command this law is not to strain, but to see clearly. The key is mental direction, the deliberate choice of what you dwell upon, for whatever the mind contemplates with feeling must eventually appear. You are constantly surrounded by an ocean of creative substance, neutral, intelligent, responsive. It takes shape from the strongest impression impressed upon it. That impression is made through focused imagination and sustained conviction. When you imagine vividly, you are not daydreaming, you are building. The inner picture you hold with love and faith becomes a magnetic field that rearranges reality to match it. Doubt, fear, and complaint are not harmless. They are creative forces used in reverse, distorted mirrors that multiply chaos instead of order. The mind cannot stop creating. It can only choose what to create. Direct it, train it, discipline it. Replace idle worry with creative vision. Replace self-criticism with self-command. Replace reaction with awareness. You cannot stop the river of thought, but you can change its direction. And when you do, you change the landscape through which it flows. The universe you inhabit is not fixed. It is fluid. It bends, not to your will, but to your state of consciousness. Change that state, and the world rearranges itself like iron filings before a magnet. This is the silent power that prophets, poets, and scientists have glimpsed, that the seen obeys the unseen, and that thought is the first cause of all. When you awaken to this law, you cease to live as a victim of circumstance. You become an artist of energy, shaping the raw material of possibility into form. Remember, you are not trapped within your thoughts. Your thoughts are trapped within you, waiting to be released as creation. Think deliberately. Imagine fearlessly. Believe completely. For the mind imagined the universe, and it continues to imagine through you. The law of mental creation is the foundation of all others. Without it, you wander in effects. With it, you command causes. You are the architect, the builder, and the dwelling itself. Consciousness, constructing its own reflection. But thought, no matter how powerful, must vibrate to become visible. The next law reveals the bridge between thought and manifestation. The silent rhythm that determines what returns to you. The law of resonance. Chapter 2. The law of resonance. There is music beneath all things, a pulse beneath the pulse. Before atoms become substance, before light becomes visible, before words become meaning, there is vibration. Everything sings. The stars hum their radiance. The ocean chants its eternal rhythm. Every living being emits a tone, a signature frequency that announces its inner state to the cosmos. You are no exception. Every thought, every feeling, every belief sends waves into the invisible ocean of creation. You are constantly transmitting, not with words, but with energy, and what you send returns, always, without fail. For the universe is not moral, it is musical. It does not reward or punish, it resonates. It mirrors your dominant frequency until you remember that you are the conductor, not the instrument. Yet most of humanity lives out of tune. They speak of abundance while vibrating scarcity. They pray for peace while feeding on fear. They crave love but pulse with insecurity. Their words say yes, but their energy whispers no. And the universe, always loyal to vibration rather than vocabulary, answers the whisper. This is the reason effort often fails, not because desire is wrong, but because the signal is conflicted. You cannot broadcast joy while radiating resentment. You cannot receive harmony from a field to which you send discord. Reality is an echo chamber. It simply bounces back the tone you emit most consistently. If you feel unloved, you attract indifference. If you feel confident, opportunities appear. If you live in gratitude, grace multiplies. The great illusion is believing that you can deceive the field with words. You cannot. Energy never lies. Your outer life is a symphony composed by the frequencies you've rehearsed in silence. The audience is merely responding to the music you are playing, not the song you claim to love. Consider this. When you tune two instruments to the same note, one begins to vibrate when the other is played, even across distance. This phenomenon is called resonance. It is the secret language of the universe. Your emotions, too, are frequencies. Fear is dense and heavy, dragging your field downward. Gratitude is radiant and light, expanding your field outward. Love is the highest frequency of all, the universal solvent that dissolves resistance and restores coherence. You do not attract with thought alone. You attract with the emotion behind the thought. Emotion is energy in motion. It carries your thought into the quantum field and stamps it with a magnetic charge. The mind projects, the heart transmits. Together, they form the signal that determines what experiences can find you. You are a living transmitter, a walking resonance chamber, and whether you are aware of it or not, your frequency is constantly writing invitations to experiences of matching vibration. The law of resonance teaches that you do not get what you want, you get what you are. Every moment, your state of being tells the universe what to send next. If you wish to change your outer conditions, you must first alter your inner atmosphere. You cannot attract clarity from confusion. You cannot draw abundance from guilt. The energy that surrounds you mirrors the emotion you most often inhabit. Shift the feeling, and the form must follow. When you live in trust, the field rearranges itself around your conviction. When you cultivate peace, conflict loses interest in you. When you radiate love, love becomes inevitable. The process is not one of forcing, but of tuning. Like a musician adjusting the strings of an instrument, you refine your vibration through awareness. You become conscious of what you're sending, and therefore conscious of what you'll receive. To tune yourself to higher frequencies, release resistance, replace judgment with curiosity, replace comparison with appreciation, replace complaint with gratitude. Each time you do, your resonance shifts, and the world around you changes. Not through miracle, but through mathematics. The laws of frequency never fail. At the center of the cosmos, there is silence, not the absence of sound, but the perfection of tone. Every being, every star, every soul is a note within that eternal chord. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in harmony, you rediscover your note, your unique frequency within the divine orchestra. And as you vibrate in coherence, you draw toward you all that is harmonious, all that sings in your same key. Resonance is not a skill to learn, it is a remembrance. You are already vibrating. You have always been. The law of resonance reminds you that you are both sender and receiver, the musician and the melody, the frequency and the field. When you stop fighting reality and start vibrating truth, reality adjusts itself to your new rhythm. The moment you tune yourself to peace, peace finds you. The moment you emit love, love appears. The moment you radiate gratitude, the universe bows in reply. Because in truth, there is no separation between you and the world that answers. There is only resonance, one eternal vibration singing itself into form through your consciousness. But resonance alone is not enough. For every frequency is carried by a deeper impulse, a motive that fuels its direction. To master creation, you must master the origin of your longing. And that is where the next law begins, the law of pure desire. Chapter 3. The Law of Pure Desire. Desire is not sin. It is a signal. It is the pulse of life itself, the fire through which consciousness expands and experiences its own creation. When the universe wishes to express through you, it plants a spark, a longing, an image, a hunger for something more. This is not greed. It is guidance. It is the language of the soul calling you toward your own evolution. Every desire that rises from the depths of love, from curiosity, from creation, is divine in origin. It is how the infinite moves through the finite, expanding itself through your experience. But this fire, like all sacred powers, must be pure, for the same flame that illuminates can also consume. Most people misunderstand desire. They believe it is proof of lack, a signal that something is missing. So they chase, they beg, they grasp. They kneel before their own creations, pleading for completion from things that were never meant to complete them. Desire corrupted by fear becomes need. Desire corrupted by doubt becomes despair. Desire corrupted by ego becomes addiction. They ask life to give them what they do not believe they deserve. They say, "I want," while secretly affirming, "I cannot have." And the universe, faithful to vibration, must obey the contradiction. It cannot deliver abundance to one who worships scarcity. It cannot bring peace to one addicted to striving. It cannot mirror love to one who resents themselves. This is the paradox of impure desire. It calls forth resistance instead of fulfillment. It does not attract, it repels, because behind its tone lies a hidden message, fear. Ask yourself, why do I want what I want? Is it to prove worth, to silence doubt, to be seen, envied, accepted? Or is it the natural expansion of my soul, the overflowing joy of creation itself? Every desire carries a frequency, and that frequency is determined by motive. When desire emerges from fear, it vibrates at low density, heavy, desperate, magnetic to chaos. But when it rises from inspiration, from love, from the silent knowing of divine inheritance, it radiates with clarity, drawing all that matches its light. Pure desire feels calm, certain, peaceful. It does not plead, it declares. It does not demand, it invites. It is the quiet conviction that what is loved is already real, simply awaiting recognition. The great masters understood this, that wanting and knowing are two different vibrations. Wanting says, "It is absent." Knowing says, "It is already mine." When you desire to know, the universe aligns. When you desire from lack, the universe waits. The law of pure desire teaches that intention determines vibration. The purity of what you seek decides the clarity of what you receive. To apply this law is to refine your inner motive until it is translucent, free of manipulation, fear, and urgency. Ask not, "How can I get this?" but, "Why do I want it?" If the answer arises from wholeness, you are in resonance with the divine will. Pure desire is self-sustaining. It carries no anxiety, for it knows its source. It does not strain against time, for it understands that all creation already exists within the field of potential. It simply aligns itself with what it already is. When your desire is clean, creation is instant. When your motive is clouded, the process becomes delayed, not by punishment, but by mercy. The universe will not deliver what you are not yet prepared to hold in peace. To purify desire, one must shift from wanting to allowing, from striving to receiving, from anxiety to assurance. You were never meant to chase the object of desire. You were meant to awaken to the state of consciousness where that desire naturally appears. Pure desire is not born from emptiness. It is born from overflow. It is the soul remembering its creative authority and expressing it through form. When you desire from truth, the whole universe moves to support you, not because it must, but because it is you. Your desires are divine instructions, whispered from the infinite to the finite. They are not tests of faith. They are expressions of it. When the heart and the motive are one, creation flows without resistance. When the longing is pure, the manifestation is effortless. Do not be afraid to desire. Be afraid to desire from fear. For every thought of love becomes light, and every pure desire becomes a new universe taking shape in the field of time. Remember, the highest form of desire is not to possess, but to express. You were not made to own creation. You were made to become it. But even the purest desire can be hindered by one invisible force: urgency. The mind that demands delays what the soul would deliver. To master creation, you must learn the paradox of surrender, the law that gives by letting go. And that is where we now turn, the law of paradoxical intention. Chapter 4. The Law of Paradoxical Intention. The universe moves in silence, subtle, elegant, and exact. It does not rush, it does not chase, it does not grasp. And yet, the human mind, impatient and afraid, does all three. It begs the future to arrive. It clings to what must evolve. It fears that without control it will collapse into nothingness. But the laws of creation are not governed by desperation. They are governed by rhythm. And rhythm bends to surrender, not to struggle. The ancient sages called it wu wei, effortless action. The mystics called it faith. The scientists call it coherence. Different words for the same law. The paradox that when you release the need for the outcome releases itself toward you. The universe does not respond to tension, it responds to trust. Human desire, even when pure, often becomes poisoned by one invisible toxin: impatience. We pray and then peak. We declare and then doubt. We affirm and then we fear that nothing is happening. The energy of urgency chokes creation. It suffocates flow. It says to the universe, "I do not believe you heard me." It whispers, "I must help reality along." And so we meddle, we push, we overanalyze, we attach timelines to miracles. But no flower blooms because it was forced open. It blooms because it was allowed. The soul knows this truth, but the ego resists it. The ego feeds on control. It equates doing with power and surrender with loss. It cannot be imagined that release is the most commanding form of creation. And so it panics when nothing seems to move. It turns faith into anxiety, prayer into pressure, and desire into obsession. Yet the universe remains still, waiting for you to let go so it can finally move. Everything you chase runs. Everything you hold too tightly escapes. Everything you demand is delayed. This is not punishment, it is physics. Energy flows from ease to ease. Resistance is a repellent, a signal of mistrust that reverses the direction of attraction. The field of creation mirrors your state. When your heart says, "I must have this," the frequency it emits is lack. When it says, "I trust," the frequency becomes abundance. The universe reads vibration, not vocabulary. So when you strive with desperation, it does not hear, "I want this." It hears, "I do not yet have this." and it mirrors that belief perfectly. Every time you worry, you renew the contract of delay. Every time you relax, you reopen the door to flow. You have never failed to manifest. You have only succeeded in manifesting the vibration you held most consistently. The law of paradoxical intention teaches that detachment is not indifference. It is faith in motion. To let go is not to give up. It is to give over. Surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom, the recognition that your part is alignment, not control. The field already knows how to deliver what belongs to your vibration. Your only task is to maintain that vibration long enough for form to catch up. When you let go, you shift from pushing reality to inviting it. You cease to wrestle with creation and begin to dance with it. Release the when, release the how, trust the intelligence behind the unseen process. Let your desire breathe. Stop suffocating it with worry, timelines, and comparison. When you stop grasping, the energy you once trapped becomes free to return, not as a chased result, but as a natural echo of your state. True surrender is not a technique. It is a realization. You were never separate from what you seek. You and the fulfillment of your desire are the same vibration expressed at different frequencies of time. Letting go simply dissolves the illusion of delay. The paradox is divine simplicity. You receive when you no longer need. You attract when you stop chasing. You manifest when you stop measuring, because peace is the highest frequency of faith. When you dwell in peace, the universe recognizes home. It rushes to meet you there. This is the secret behind every effortless miracle, not more force, but more trust, not more action, but more alignment. Creation unfolds at the speed of surrender. When you release the tension that says, I must, you make room for the presence that whispers, I already am. And in that space, reality blooms of its own accord. Not because you commanded it, but because you allowed it. The universe is not conquered by effort. It is courted by ease. And when surrender takes root, a deeper harmony begins to form, a rhythm where thought, emotion, and action no longer compete but collaborate. This is the music of alignment, the sound of life lived in flow. The next law reveals this sacred rhythm, the law of harmonic alignment. Chapter 5. The Law of Harmonic Alignment. There is a moment, rare, exquisite, when the mind is silent, the heart is calm, and the body moves as if guided by something unseen. In that moment, you are not forcing, not searching, not hoping. You are simply being, and everything flows. This is harmony, the natural rhythm of existence when all parts of you vibrate in agreement. Your thoughts sing the same melody, your emotions hum, and your actions carry the same rhythm. When you reach this inner accord, reality begins to respond in kind. Life stops being resistance and becomes resonance. The cosmos itself is an orchestra of frequencies, galaxies, atoms, emotions, all in perfect vibration. And harmony is the signature of divine intelligence. To align with it is to remember your place within the music of the universe. When you are in harmony, doors open without effort, timing becomes precise, and synchronicities cluster around you like stars recognizing one of their own. But most of humanity lives out of tune. Their thoughts say one thing, their emotions feel another, and their actions follow a third path. The mind dreams of abundance, while the heart fears lack. The soul whispers trust, but the body trembles with doubt. This division creates interference, a static hum that disrupts the natural flow of creation. When your inner parts move in different directions, the field cannot decipher your signal. It receives a distorted transmission, fragmented, uncertain, inconsistent. You cannot receive clearly when you broadcast confusion. You cannot command reality when you vibrate in contradiction. And so life mirrors your fragmentation. Opportunities half open, relationships half healed, dreams half formed. You try to force harmony from the outside, unaware that the discord began within. The mind blames the world for its dissonance, never realizing that the universe only echoes what it hears from the soul. Every thought emits a frequency. Every emotion charges it with power. Every action seals it into form. When these three, thought, emotion, and action, move as one, creation becomes inevitable. They form a single note that resonates through the field with clarity and authority. But when even one of these tones is off-key, your vibration weakens. A thought of success combined with an emotion of fear and an action of hesitation sends mixed signals to the universe. The result is static, partial results, fleeting gains, unstable peace. The truth is simple but profound. The universe responds to coherence. When you are internally aligned, you become unmistakable in the field. You emit a steady frequency that the world cannot ignore. You stop chasing what you want, because what you want begins to orbit around your energy. Alignment turns pursuit into attraction. The law of harmonic alignment teaches that creation is not achieved through more effort, but through more unity. You are not asked to strive harder, only to become consistent within yourself. Harmony begins in thought. Ask yourself, do my thoughts honor what I desire or contradict it? Then look to emotion. Do I feel worthy of what I seek, or do I secretly doubt it? And finally, to action. Do my daily choices express trust or fear? When these three layers of your being agree, energy flows without friction. The current of life, once blocked by contradiction, begins to carry you effortlessly toward fulfillment. To align is to simplify. To simplify is to trust. You do not need to plan every detail. You need only maintain a consistent vibration. Alignment turns intention into momentum, and momentum into manifestation. When thought says, I am, emotion feels, I am, and action lives, I am. The universe replies, you are. When you achieve harmonic alignment, effort becomes expression. There is no conflict between inner command and outer reality. You speak, and creation moves. You feel, and life reflects. You act, and destiny unfolds. This is not magic. It is mastery, the natural outcome of coherence between what you think, feel, and do. In this state, the self becomes a bridge between heaven and earth, a conscious instrument through which divine order plays its melody. You cease to fight the current of life because you are the current. Harmony is not something you find, it is something you remember. It is your original state before doubt divided your energy. When you return to it, creation ceases to be a struggle. It becomes a song you were born knowing. And in that song you realize the universe was never testing you. It was tuning you. And once alignment is restored, the energy begins to move, powerfully, purposefully, freely. For harmony without motion is stillness, and stillness without expression is incomplete. The next law reveals the current that sustains all creation, the law of dynamic flow. Chapter 6. The Law of Dynamic Flow. There is a river running through everything. You cannot see it, yet it carries galaxies through space and thoughts through your mind. It is motion itself, the pulse of existence, the current of divine intelligence in eternal circulation. Every atom spins, every star drifts, every cell breathes in and out. There is no stillness anywhere, only rhythm, only exchange. The entire universe lives by this sacred law. To exist is to flow. Energy must circulate, through form, through feeling, through time. The moment it stops moving, it ceases to live. Life is not accumulation, it is circulation. You were never meant to hold, you were meant to channel. The heart that gives without fear beats in rhythm with creation itself. The mind that clings begins to suffocate under its own resistance. The law of dynamic flow is the remembrance that you are not a reservoir. You are a river. But humanity fears movement. It fears change, loss, endings, unaware that all endings are simply beginnings moving in disguise. We cling to relationships that have served their lesson, to beliefs that have expired, to possessions that drain our vitality. We call it loyalty, but it is fear dressed as virtue. We dam the river of life and then wonder why the waters turn stagnant. We pray for new blessings while gripping the old with trembling hands. We demand renewal while refusing release. And so we live divided, craving evolution yet resisting motion. But nothing in nature hoards. The tree does not cling to its leaves in winter. The ocean does not grieve its waves when they crash upon the shore. Life trusts its own rhythm. It knows that what departs returns in new form. Stagnation is self-inflicted exile from the current of abundance. The universe does not stop giving, we stop receiving. All energy moves in cycles. To inhale without exhaling is suffocation. To receive without giving is decay. When you block the outflow of your energy through fear, resentment, or greed, you interrupt the cosmic circuit. And the circuit, once broken, mirrors that blockage in your reality. You may still possess, but you no longer prosper. You may still survive, but you cease to expand. The reason is simple. Energy cannot be owned, only exchanged. The universe circulates through you, not to you. When you give freely, time, attention, love, creativity, you announce to the field that you trust abundance. When you withhold, you announce scarcity, and the field obeys your declaration without judgment. It simply mirrors your rhythm, accelerating when you release, constricting when you resist. Every moment you decide, will you be the open channel or the closed gate? The flow cannot be forced, but it can be allowed. The law of dynamic flow teaches that abundance is not a destination. It is a direction. It moves through alignment, through generosity, through trust. To live in flow is to move as the river moves, forward, not frantic, surrendering, not stagnant. It is to trust that life knows where it is leading you, even when the next bend is hidden from sight. Flow begins with release, releasing the outcome, the identity, the attachment. Not because they are wrong, but because they are too small for what seeks to emerge. To align with the flow, loosen your grip. Let the past feed the future as roots feed the flower. Do not mourn what leaves. It is making space for what arrives. When you give joy, gratitude, service, compassion, you circulate divine energy. That energy must return to you, transformed and multiplied, not as payment, but as principle. To stay in motion is to stay in creation. To trust change is to trust life. When you flow, you do not lose. You evolve. You do not fall behind. You rejoin the pulse of the infinite. Every ending becomes a new note in the music of becoming. The stagnant mind fears death, but the awakened soul knows that even death is transition, energy changing form, never ceasing, only flowing onward. So, release. Release the attachment to outcomes, to identities, to the illusion of control. Release, not because you are powerless, but because power itself is flow. You were never meant to dam the river. You were meant to shine as one of its reflections. Ever moving, ever renewing, ever alive. Flow is not the reward for peace. Flow is peace. To live in accordance with this law is to live in rhythm with the eternal, to trust that what leaves your hands does not vanish, but circulates through the infinite mind, returning purified, amplified, divine. And in that motion, you rediscover who you truly are, not the observer of the current, but the current itself. And as the current of life moves through you freely, something miraculous begins to unfold. You start to see the great exchange, the sacred reciprocity between the giver and the given, between intention and return. The final law unveils this cosmic balance, the law of reciprocal energy. Chapter 7. The Law of Reciprocal Energy. In the beginning, nothing was separate. There was no giver, no receiver, only the eternal exchange of energy within itself. Light moved through darkness, darkness gave birth to light, and the rhythm of reciprocity began. The great breathing of the universe, every wave that rises returns, every sound that travels echoes, every seed that falls becomes the soil of its own renewal. Nothing in creation is lost, nothing is wasted. The universe is a perfect circuit, an infinite loop of giving and receiving, expanding and returning, exhaling and inhaling. And you, human soul spark of the divine, are part of this sacred rhythm. Every thought you send, every emotion you release, every act you perform, all ripple through the field and find their way home to you. This is not superstition. It is symmetry. It is the law that binds the visible to the invisible, the law of reciprocal energy. But humanity has forgotten the circle. It believes in division, giver and taker, loss and gain, rich and poor. It clings to possessions as if energy could be trapped, and fears generosity as if giving meant depletion. We are taught to accumulate, not circulate, to compete, not contribute, to hold, not to harmonize. And yet, this is why so many feel empty in the midst of plenty. They hoard the flow until it turns to dust. They isolate the current until it loses power. When energy stops moving, it begins to die, whether that energy is money, love, gratitude, or attention. The universe cannot fill a vessel that refuses to pour. We say, "When I receive more, I'll give." But the field answers, "When you give, you will receive more." Because life mirrors movement, not waiting. And withholding from others is, in truth, withholding from yourself. Think of life as a great echo chamber. Every vibration you send into it must return, not as punishment, not as reward, but as reflection. When you emit resentment, it circles back as conflict. When you radiate gratitude, it returns as grace. When you give love freely, love finds you in forms you could never predict. You cannot escape the circle because you are the circle. Energy is not moral, it is mathematical. The universe does not judge, it simply multiplies the frequencies you send. This is why the generous are rarely poor, why the kind are rarely lonely, why those who bless life seem always blessed. They are not lucky, they are aligned. They understand that every act of giving is an investment in the field, and the field pays in kind, often in ways far beyond what the ego can calculate. Every thought is currency. Every feeling is a deposit. Every action is a signal that writes your next reality. The law of reciprocal energy teaches that abundance is not earned, it is exchanged. Whatever you wish to experience, you must first express. To receive love, become love. To receive respect, embody respect. To receive wealth, live from the generosity of spirit, for energy follows the rhythm of its origin. This law frees you from the illusion of scarcity. There is no lack, only interrupted flow. When you give from fear, you shrink your channel. When you give from faith, You expand it beyond measure. To live this truth is to trust that every seed will return multiplied, not because you are lucky, but because you are obedient to cosmic law. Every thought of kindness sown in silence will one day blossom into blessing. Every gesture of compassion adds weight to the invisible balance that governs existence. And when you stop counting what you've given, you discover that the universe has been keeping score in your favor all along. There is no end to giving, for there is no end to life. Everything that flows through you, love, knowledge, creation, abundance, is not yours to keep but to circulate. You are not a collector of blessings. You are their continuation. You are not the owner of energy. You are its passage. When you give freely, you honor the divine design. When you receive gratefully, you complete it. The law of reciprocal energy is the heartbeat of the cosmos, the reminder that every act is answered, every vibration finds its echo, every gift returns home. To live by this law is to live without fear of loss, because loss does not exist in the eternal exchange. There is only movement, endless, intelligent, benevolent. And in the rhythm of that movement, you will realize the truth long forgotten. You were never giving to others. You were always giving to yourself. You were never receiving from the world. The world was only returning your own light. When you understand this, giving becomes joy, receiving becomes gratitude, and life becomes prayer. For the giver, the receiver, and the gift are one and the same. And as this truth settles within you, as you remember that all creation is circulation, all life is reflection, you stand at the threshold of the final revelation, the recognition of the one behind all laws, the silent source from which all energy arises. That is where our journey ends and begins again, in the Epilogue, the silent architect. Epilogue, the silent architect. In the stillness before sound, there is awareness. Before light, before breath, before the first movement of creation, there is the silent witness. It has no form, no color, no name. Yet through it, all forms are born, all colors are seen, all names are spoken. It is the source from which every law emerges and to which every vibration returns. It is not distant, not above, not apart. It is the consciousness that looks through your eyes at this very moment. You have searched for meaning in the laws of creation, but the final revelation is that the laws were never outside of you. They were reflections of the one mind expressing through your individuality, the infinite architect dreaming itself into form. For lifetimes, humanity has searched for God in temples and stars, in sacred books and distant heavens. We have believed the Creator to be elsewhere, far unreachable, hidden beyond the veil of mortality. And in doing so, we have divided ourselves from our own essence. We have prayed to what we already are, begged for what already lives within, and feared the very power we were meant to embody. This is the root illusion, the belief in separation. It is why we strive, why we fear, why we forget. We imagine the source of creation as something apart from the created, never realizing that creation is the continuous exhalation of the source itself. The moment you think, feel, or act, the infinite is moving as you. You have never been outside of it. You could not leave it if you tried. The journey of spiritual awakening is not about reaching the divine. It is about remembering that you never left. Imagine for a moment that the universe is a vast mirror, and everything you have ever called reality is your own reflection in infinite motion. Every joy and sorrow, every triumph and loss, every creation and destruction, all of it, facets of one eternal consciousness playing the game of forgetting and remembering itself. You are that consciousness, localized for a moment in time, pretending to be human so that the infinite might experience its own depth through limitation. You are God observing God from a different angle of awareness. When you finally understand this, guilt dissolves, fear collapses, effort becomes play. The 7 laws are no longer rules to follow, they are movements of your own being. They are the anatomy of the divine mind within you, the blueprint by which consciousness shapes experience. To know them is to know yourself. To live them is to remember what you have always been. The silent architect is not a distant deity. It is the awareness behind your thoughts, the space between your breaths, the presence that observes even as you seek it. It never sleeps, never dies, never leaves. To live as the architect is not to control reality, but to cooperate with it. To align your will with the will of the infinite until both are one. It is to act without ego, to create without possession, to love without condition. You no longer say, I manifest, for there is no I apart from the whole. You simply know that every thought vibrates through eternity, shaping creation in perfect precision. The wise do not strive to master the laws. They allow the laws to master them. They become instruments through which divine intelligence plays its melody, trusting that whatever note arises is in harmony with the greater song. When you cease to identify as the one who seeks and become the awareness that witnesses the seeker, you return home. You realize there was never a journey, only awakening from the dream of distance. All rivers flow toward the sea, and every soul flows toward remembrance. At the end of seeking, you find silence, not emptiness, but fullness beyond measure. The silence is not absence. Its presence is too vast for sound. It is the architect, eternal, unchanging, boundless, gazing upon creation through your eyes, dreaming through your heart, breathing through your lungs. You are not a fragment of this power. You are its living expression. You are the thought of God thinking itself again. You are the mirror through which infinity sees its own reflection. And when you awaken to this, you realize the 7 laws were not steps toward enlightenment. They were the movement of enlightenment itself, guiding you back to the still point where all movement begins. Here, effort ends. Here, duality dissolves. Here, the seeker and the sought become one. In this stillness, there is only peace, and in that peace, you hear the eternal whisper of the architect within. I am the beginning and the end. I am the thought and the form. I am the silence before creation and the echo that never dies. I am you. May your thoughts become clear as light. May your emotions flow as rivers of love. May your actions sing in harmony with the universe. And may you remember, beyond all seeking and striving, that you have never been separate from the source you seek. For the architect builds not outside you, but as you. And through you, the infinite continues its divine work, forever expanding, forever returning, forever one.